Let's watch this video.
The officer opened the back of the toilet to see if I was hiding something in there. That's to find a squirrel. Let somebody come in here and do this to your house and keep it like this. I actually have broken soap bottles on the ground. I have a stain on my ground. This is to find a squirrel. This is to find a squirrel. This is to find a squirrel. You see that? That's that. See that? Do you see this, guys? You see that? You want to tell me that that's acceptable? This is the destruction that these people left in my house. So if you guys want to explain to me how this wouldn't devastate you, I have never been in trouble with the law whatsoever. There's another suitcase that came out of the closet. I don't have anything else to show you guys because the mind-blowing thing is the only places that they fucking destroyed was my room. The only things they destroyed were my room. They raided my house for a squirrel and a raccoon.
I'm very sorry that that happened to you, and I'm so sorry, Peanut. And your raccoon is gone, Brad. But let's jump ahead and let's get to some legal aspects. Remember, not too long ago this year, the Supreme Court ended the Chevron difference, right? What did the Chevron doctrine allow? Well, let's explain it. It allowed federal agencies to interpret ambiguous laws within their jurisdiction, granting them considerable power in shaping and enforcing regulations. Get this. This principle was frequently applied in cases involving the ATF, which oversees firearms and regulations and other things. And they usually come when they raid your home. In June of 2024, the Supreme Court shot it down and overturned it. It ruled that the doctrine was inconsistent with the Administrative Procedure Act, which requires courts to exercise their own judgment on whether an agency has acted within its authority. The court also found that agencies are not better able to resolve ambiguous in statutes than courts. So what are the consequences that this ruling will include? Increased judicial scrutiny, more challenges to agencies' interpretation. Okay, private parties and government contractors will have more opportunities to challenge agencies' interpretations of statutes. Now, that's a big more uncertainty with existing regulations and agencies' interpretation of ambiguous statutes will be more uncertain. Impacts on policy lifestyle. The ruling will impact how bills are drafted, how agencies issue decisions, and how regulated entities commit on rules. Chevron Act was in place in 1984. It was a decision, which it was versus Natural Resource Defense Council. But as always, when they take one thing, they take a mile, 10 miles, and they use it for nefarious reasons. If federal legislation is ambiguous or leaves an administrative gap, the courts must defer to the regulatory agency's interpretation if the interpretation is reasonable. Now, when they did what they did to Peanut and the raccoon and raided his home, how would you interpret that? And what this judge's warrant was, his interpretation? Lucas Corley overruled Chevron. The decision dramatically reduces deference to the agencies and places on courts the obligation to determine fully, independently, whether an agency's actions are consistent with the words of the statute and intent of Congress. What kind of case would need to go against it? What would bring it up to where you can completely get rid of all of these agencies of what they do? Because nothing's ever been codified. A case that would need to go against a Chevron Act ruling from the Supreme Court would be one where a court is asked to review a federal agency's interpretation of law that is considered unreasonable. I would say that this was very unreasonable, clearly contradicted by the statute, or where the statute is not ambiguous, thus not requiring the differences to the agency's interpretation. Essentially, a case where the court believes the agency has overstepped its authority in interpreting the freaking law, babies. All it takes is one case to show where they overstepped their law and that they weaponized what they were doing. Did they cause harm? Absolutely. I promise you, Peanut and Fred's murder is what we'll call it. Noticed. Sadly, I believe they're the martyrs. Country Crazy out.